reaction from lawmakers after a report found photos of a second controversial flag, a flag that was used by some January 6 rioters, flying over Justice Samuel Alito's vacation home. Kate spoke with the chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee, Senator Dick Durbin. This is what he said.
You start to wonder, is this just a chance indiscretion, or is it a conscious declaration of his MAGA loyalty? I mean, that is not expected. When it comes to the Supreme Court, we expect the men and women on that court to be above this sort of activity.
When you say, when you start to wonder, which do you think it is, Senator?
Listen, I don't think it's a coincidence in the second instance. I think he's speaking pretty clearly as to his political loyalties, and it's a shame.
Remember, that's the chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee. With me now is the former director of strategic communications for Donald Trump's 2020 campaign, Mark Lauder. Also with us, veteran Democratic strategist and consultant Simon Rosenberg. Simon, what do you see going on here?
Oh, it's a tragedy. I mean, I think the corruption of the judiciary and the Supreme Court is a major issue. I mean, this is now an important American institution which appears to be compromised and to be, on the verge of illegitimacy. And it's going to matter. I mean, the simple thing that can happen now that Alito should do is he should recuse himself from any of the discussions of January 6th or Trump in the elections. That would be a simple step forward for him to take. And it would relieve, I think, a lot of the concerns about the corruption we've seen with Clarence Thomas and the things that he's done, this year. But it's a crisis. I think we have a crisis in one of our most important institutions. And it's something that we have to discuss, and it's going to be a major part of the conversation in this election.
So, Mark, even if you don't see this as a flag connected to January 6th, and we should note that Speaker Mike Johnson has flown this flag outside his office periodically over time, even if you don't see it as a January 6th flag, should a Supreme Court justice be flying a flag that has political implications at all?
Well, I mean, I think that's up to each of those justices to decide that. But I mean, I remember Ruth Bader Ginsburg basically coming out and trashing Donald Trump. She didn't recuse herself on any of the cases that came before her that involved the former president. So look, I mean, our justices all have their own personal political beliefs. They are able to do that. That is their right. The question is, how do they rule on the law? And I think, obviously, Justice Alito is probably one of the most respected constitutional scholars there is. And regardless of his personal political leanings or that of his family, as long as it doesn't interfere with his interpretation of the Constitution, then I think it's just Americans being Americans.
Look, Justice Ginsburg actually ultimately sort of apologized for that, for coming out in the statement she made about Donald Trump. I mean, are you comfortable with a justice advertising their political beliefs, Mark?
I'm more concerned about how they rule on the law. We often have people who have personal political beliefs, but they have to set those aside when it comes to administering the law or executing justice or the laws of America. So as long as he's able to do that, then he has my full confidence. All Americans have their personal beliefs. Sometimes we have to set them aside to do our work.
Look, yeah, but Supreme Court justices aren't all Americans. They're a pretty select group of 9 people held to a different standard by some, although no specific legal standard, it does turn out. I want to play some sound from Steve Bannon's podcast over the last 24 hours where he was reacting to a discussion apparently about Donald Trump's statement that he wanted to be a dictator only on day one. But listen to what Steve Bannon said, Simon.
We mock your fear. We want you to fear. It's going to be accountability, responsibility. And that will come with authority. The authority of Donald John Trump as the 47th president of the United States.
Basically, Simon, saying you will be held to account. We want your fear. What do you think the message is that sends?
Listen, I think we have to, every day that we engage in these conversations, we have to remember that in 2021, Donald Trump tried to overturn a legitimate American election and install himself as a dictator in the United States. And he did it through an armed attack on the Capitol. Once you've done something like that, I don't know that you need any more information about the intention of where he's going or where he'll go in the second term. I mean, we have a guy who has tried to end American democracy for all time once. He decided that he needed to run again so he could finish the job in January of 2025. And I think that this is a central area of engagement in this election. The Democratic Party wants to preserve and strengthen American democracy. The Republicans want to end it. Let's have that debate in this election.
Mark, you seem like a positive guy. I mean, what do you think of a campaign that's run on welcoming the fear of political opponents?
Well, I think what he's saying is basically that the America First movement, the MAGA movement, is tired of platitudes. They want action. They expect, whether it's the president, whether it's a member of Congress, that when we elect you and you say and campaign on doing something, we expect you to get it done. I think that's one of the big takeaways back from 2016 and now moving forward, that we don't want just our politicians in Washington, D.C. to talk. We want them to actually solve the problems. And so I think what you saw there with Steve Bannon is him saying that whether you are a Republican or a Democrat, if you're going to be elected, we expect you to do things on behalf of the American people and not just talk about it.
Nikki Haley says she is voting for Donald Trump. Simon, I put this to both of you. Who needs Nikki Haley voters more? President Biden or Donald Trump? Simon, first to you.
Yeah, I think this is going to be an area of engagement by both parties. I mean, we know from polling that a large number of Nikki Haley voters are very open to voting for Joe Biden. And now the two campaigns are going to have to go compete to go win those voters. But I think it's important to recognize that the Republican Party has splintered. I mean, the opposition to Trump inside the Republican Party, two former vice presidents, former party nominee, former vice presidential nominee, former Speaker of the House, many dozens and dozens of elected officials, officials who served under Trump in the administration, are openly campaigning against Donald Trump. We've never seen this kind of opposition inside a party by party leaders against their nominee. And so I think the danger for Trump is that, look, he lost the last election. He needs more voters. These voters are much more important to him than to us. And he's got to, and I've been a little surprised how the campaign has been handling this to date.
Mark's got to be quick. How bad does Donald Trump need Nikki Haley voters?
I think both sides do, but the benefit is that we have the policy and the results on our side. People do not like Joe Biden's inflation, immigration, and if you want to see an end of it, you can't vote for Joe Biden. Personality differences, those will get put aside. People are going to want to see a change in direction in America.
Got it. Signs. Inflation is coming down, but I take your point. Mark Lauder and Simon Rosenberg, thanks to both of you. Kate?
So there is